Come on. We on LinkedIn. Okay. Boom, 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 boom. Hello, Mr. Kulkarni. So nice to see you again. Can you hear me properly? If you can hear me properly, say something. People on YouTube, if you can hear me properly, say something. Yesterday, we were a bit late. I felt very guilty. So today we're on time, before time, and we're gonna start right on time. Don't worry, this is not the simultaneous sip. If you can hear me, say yes. Mr. Gokul Arasu says yes. Okay, I'm audible on LinkedIn. Oh, sorry, YouTube. I am audible on YouTube. I just want to be sure. Yup. Alright. Thank you, Mr. Kulkarni. I am audible on YouTube and on LinkedIn, which means we're gonna begin. 8 a.m. This is the first time we are ever gonna be on time. First time at 8 a.m. Alright. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Call it divine intervention, folks, but things just got a whole lot better. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we start our day. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, we got to follow a tradition. And you know the tradition, right? The tradition of the simultaneous sip. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug or glass or tank, a chalice or stein, a canteen jug or flask or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. Today I'm having coffee. Cold. And here we go. Oh my god. Oh my god. Let's do it again. Extraordinary. Couldn't get any better. I mean, it's just highlight of my day. Dopamine hit of dopamine hits. The simultaneous sip says something very beautiful. You remember what it says, right? It says that you're not alone. It says that we're in this together. That's such a nice thing to say. Well, that out of the way, let's begin. So, iPhone production slows but steadies in May at 15,000 crores. So, Tata is making a lot of iPhones in India, and that production has slowed in May. But is this really news? Now think about it. Is this the right framing of this news? I think as frequency we dissect these things, right? Or dissect these things, right? So is it because production peaked at March at 19,000 crores, and now because of that front loading, it's the usual cooling off period because of the tariffs? A lot of producers, a lot of exporters, what they did was they front loaded a lot of exports, right? And a lot of iPhones that get produced in India are to be exported. So is it slowing news a real news, or is it just expected? due to the front loading that happened as the tariffs were getting announced, right? So viewers of Thinkers Frequency will remember that we discussed how in the earlier days when it seemed like the government is going to raise the price of petrol by midnight, a lot of people used to be lining up to the petrol stations to get their petrol filled, right? And of course, after they had filled their tanks, their consumption decreased in the subsequent week. But does that mean the subsequent week actually showed a deduction or reduction? No, it doesn't. So that piece of news is not really going anywhere. Monthly run rate 10 to 11,000. Monthly run rate in Jan to May 15,000. Production peaked in March at 19,630 crores, declined subsequently in months. So what did I tell you? What did I tell you? I feel like an African lady in hindsight. What did I tell you? Didn't I tell you? And what happened? Exactly what I told you. Okay. Byju's offloads 2 US units in distress sales. So Byju's has been running a very nice Pradhan Mantri Amir Kalyan Yojana, aided by the brilliant Indian VCs. So it was once valued at $22 billion, right? And it raised a lot of money, and all that money it raised, it was spent in acquiring companies. So I'll give you numbers. I had written a post about it. I don't remember the exact numbers, but Byju's bought Akash at 1 billion, 950 million, right? And then Byju's bought Epic for 500 million. And then Byju's bought Zishan Hayat's company, Topper, for 650 million. And then it bought White Hat Jr. for 400 million. Then it bought a lot of companies. 1 second. So I'll tell you. It raised $5.8 billion, 44,000 crores. Yes, I have written this 2 years ago. Very nice post. Byju's raised 5.8 billion, 44,000 crores. While its total losses were only 700 million. Right? Byju's didn't lose a lot of money like that. At least not before 2021, 2022. This should have meant a healthy cash reserve, but it's not that simple. FY16, 100 crore revenue, 49 crore loss. FY17, 250 crore revenue, 59 crore loss. FY18, 470 crore revenue, 38 crore loss. This is minuscule loss, right? FY19, 1300 crore revenue, 9 crore loss. This is when Byju said that we are going to be profitable. 9 crore loss, 1300 crore revenue. FY20, 2000 crore revenue, 260 crore loss. And then came FY21, 2200 crore revenue and 4,500 crore loss. 4,800 crore loss. Now these losses are huge. Not counting the FY21 year, they are actually not bad, But here's what Byju spent on acquisition. 950 million on Akash. Great Learning, 600 million. Epic, 500 million. White Hat Junior, 300 million. Tinker, 200 million. Topper, 150 million. Osmo, 120 million. Vidyart, 6 million. Tutor Vista, 3 million. So it raised $5.8 billion in total. And by the end of its exercise, it had spent $3 billion on acquisition. So $5.8 billion raised and $3 billion spent on acquisition. Just imagine. That was, and why did Byju's spend this much money on acquisition? A lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think that it's just the founders who got crazy. Why do you think Byju's was spending so much money on acquisition left, right and center? Anybody? Because of the VCs. Because of the VCs. So VCs came in. Byju's was running fine 2014, 15, 16. It was just an average company doing whatever it could. Then came VCs, right? And when came VCs, came this extraordinary blitz scaling scenario. Okay, I mean, Byju's was founded in 2011. It was small and working all right. It's another one of my posts a year ago. The going was good till Sequoia invested its first 250 million in 2015. Sequoia came in 2015 to 25 million. Sorry. Sequoia invested 25 million in 2015. And then it all turned awesome. The money god started blessing the company with all its might when Sequoia first called its LP Sofina to invest and later brought many of its regular co-investors like Chan Zuckerberg and Verlin West to also join in. From 2015 to 2021, from Series B to Series H, because so much money, right? So it doesn't even matter counting which letter. Series H, it was a revolutionary company with legendary founder. It had raised $4 billion and also taken 1.2 billion in debt. Okay, Sequoia's YouTube channel had an episode featuring Divya Gokulnath on an episode of She Builds. So it was not just the founders. It was, in fact, not at all the founders who did this. It was plain and simple Sequoia guys. This Mr. Shailendra, who's very famous for his feuds, right? Bharat Pay and everybody else. He Zilingo, Ankiti Bose was the person behind Trello Zilingo. She was saying that they have conspired against her and so on and so forth. So these guys pulled the Ponzi. Like they built the Ponzi and jacked it up. They jacked it to the top, right? And they kept jacking it as much as they could until they couldn't jack it anymore. And they probably exited secondaries at 22 billion whenever the last investment happened. And then it all came crashing down, you know. That is and you never talk about them. So a lot of news just goes to uh, this founder guy who is what's his name, Baiju. Baiju Ravindran, right? So everybody is like, he is the thief, he's that, he's the Ponzi builder. The real Ponzi builders were Sequoia guys. These are the guys who came in the company, blitz scaled it, built the Ponzi, and blew it up. And now, Byju's is actually selling its companies. So it is selling uh, Epic, something it had acquired for 400 million for 95 million, and then another company it had acquired, it's selling it for $2 million. Something it had acquired like 200 million or something. It's now going out for $2 million. So I'll just tell you the correct amount. Code HS has acquired Tinker for $2.2 million in cash. Byju's had paid 200 million. $200 million to Tinker. And China's Tal Education Group has paid 95 million for Epic, which had been bought for $500 million. So, here's what nobody tells you. What nobody tells you is that it's all luck at the end of the day. It's all luck, Most business decisions, and it's not me who's saying this. Mr. Nitin Kamath, the founder of Zerodha, put it beautifully when he said, outcomes in businesses are mostly based on luck, right? And he was so right, because think about it. The founder of Tinker or the founder of Epic, whoever built that company, he got a nice fat exit at $500 million, right? Or founder of White Hat Junior got an exit at $300 million. Was his company worth $300 million? Was Epic worth $500 million? Was Topper worth $150 million? Topper was a struggling company. It wasn't making money. It wasn't growing. It was a piece of shit, unfortunately, right? And was it worth $150 million? No, it wasn't. But somehow, because of everything that was going on, uh, you know, there came a company who started buying out these companies one after the other. So it paid $1 billion to Akash. It paid 500 million to Epic. It paid 300 million to White Hat Junior. It paid 150 million to Topper. And a lot of it was cash. So all of these people, they didn't take a lot of stock. There's another beautiful thing, right? So this company came and started distributing cash. The Akash deal of $1 billion was 25% stock, 75% cash, 20, 30, 70, something like that. So these people just got all that cash. Like Akash Chaudhary got $750 million in cash. Would he have got that money ever if not for Baiju? No, he wouldn't have, you know. And that's the beauty of it. That's nobody tells you. Nobody likes to admit that most of what happens in this business world is just chance outcomes playing out. Right? I would like to apologize for a statement I just made. Calling Topper a piece of wasn't right. I mean, it's not their fault that they got lucky. Yes, the company was struggling. Yes, they were not doing as they must have planned, or they must have imagined, or they must have hoped. But calling somebody's work a piece of, that's not right. So I'd like to apologize straight away. Better late than never, right? But that said, Topper must be happy. Mr. Zishan Hayat doesn't care, I'm sure, me calling whatever to Topper, because he got the money, right? So that's what happened with Baiju's. And who did it? VCs did it. Moving on to VCs and their beautiful, moves. Center may crack down on dark side of Q-commerce stores. Well. And three wells is never a good sign. We discussed yesterday or day before, I don't know. Thinkers Frequency viewers will know that quick commerce stores were getting raided for falling standards. Their food had all fungus growing on them. They're a real shit show. Dusty racks keeping food, and very dirty conditions in that food product was getting distributed by these quick commerce dark stores. And these FSSAI, there was a permit problem with the air conditioning and a lot of things, right? So these people, FSSAI guys, otherwise always sleeping, they woke up and they went, and then they've sealed some of the dark stores. They're auditing them, some Zepto store in Pune and so on and so forth. So now these people are saying that they're looking at cracking down on them hard, because this could be a health hazard, right? So what happens is, Indian street food, Indian fast food, whatever you can call it, is famous for lacking hygiene standards globally. There's a lot of memes get circulated about Indian street food getting prepared in a very, very weird way. But at least it's out in the open, right? You know what you're doing. You know what you have. But with dark stores, who knows? Who knows what happens, right? And that leads to serious, that is possible. It's possible that it leads to serious health hazards and so on and so forth. And people are saying that it could be because these people scaled too quickly. Well, of course, that's no brainer. That's no brainer at all. These people did scale too quickly. And because of scaling, at the end of the day, it's not tech play, right? Warehousing, logistics, managing a store, it's not a tech play. It's people's play at the end of the day. Unless everything is robot controlled, everything is tech, it's not really tech, right? So you don't know. And with that, these people are now finally facing some regulatory oversight. By the way, it must be said that the government has been very, very light as far as the whole e-commerce industry is considered. Firstly, e-commerce wasn't supposed to be an inventory play for the first till 2014 or something, 2014-15. But yet, all of these people, these e-commerce players, were essentially disguised, running an inventory play in a disguised way. So they were calling themselves marketplaces, but the sellers on their platforms were essentially their own. So that was totally illegal. And they were actually running an illegal show. And nobody did anything about it because it was attracting a lot of FDI and so on and so forth. And now similar regulatory weak oversight has been the case with Q-commerce because a lot of money is coming. Nobody wants to interfere with money, right? But as the money subsides, it'll kick in. By the way, Mr. Narayan Murthy was also involved in one of those cases. So Mr. Narayan Murthy and Infosys really haven't been keen investors in the startup ecosystem, right? Mr. Narayan Murthy talks about what does he talk about? 80-hour work weeks or 100-hour work weeks and so on and so forth. But just go to Infosys startup page, investment page, and it hasn't been updated for years. And they don't even have a very big portfolio to speak of, to be honest. Not even close. They haven't never invested in startups. Mr. Murthy hasn't invested much in startups because ideally, if you're looking for people who will work for 80 hours a week, you'd be very interested in funding startups. But he hasn't done that. But he built a company called Catamaran Ventures, and all Catamaran Ventures did was be a shadow warehousing play for Amazon. So essentially, Catamaran Ventures helped Amazon evade, or let's say break the law in a shadow way, and he exited the venture Catamaran so this Catamaran and Amazon broke up in 2022, I guess, 2021, 2022, or maybe 2023. But that also happened. So, a lot of industry titans also participated in this. Of course, that shouldn't be surprising, but it must be said, right? It's an interesting thing to follow. So, as we discussed, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know, debt-laden Pakistan spikes defense budget by 20%. So 20% is a pretty solid year-on-year growth for defense budget, right? India, by contrast, only grew defense budget by 11% last year. In the budget that it was announced, it only had 11%, and counting inflation, it was basically nothing, right? But Pakistan has spiked the defense budget. 47% of budget will go towards servicing debt and overall spending cut, essentially. So this, I've always been saying that India really needs to put the pedal to the metal as far as defense is considered, defense spending is considered, because defense spending is not just capex for capex, right? Defense spending could also spur a lot of technological innovation, a lot of real technological manufacturing capability, because with defense comes national development, and with national development, as far as manufacturing is considered, so you have real manufacturers who cannot be just importing parts from China, because that can't be how defense works, right? So if you look at US, it offshored everything. It let its manufacturing die. It sold out the country for these 30 years. But defense, it kept with itself. So that's an interesting play, right? And India needs to do that because it's surrounded by China and Pakistan, with Pakistan upping its spending. This should be good news for defense stocks in India, because as a response to this, there should be some upward movement as far as defense stocks is considered. By the way, we talked about defense stocks yesterday, and HAL was up 2%. Hey, how are you long on India or short? What do you think is the future of the country? Well, Mr. Manish Kondhalkar asks this question. Are you long on India or are you short? What do you think is the future of the country? It's a very, very difficult question. Very difficult question. Man, it's one of the hardest questions and also very detailed ones. But I'll try to be quick as I answer this. So, it's hard to be optimistic about India because of the systemic cultural problems we have. Let's say, what would I see? What would I like to see to be instantly optimistic about India, right? I'd like to see the bureaucracy getting killed, the babus getting killed. They just I mean, by killed, not like literally killed, just fired. Let's say, I don't want attacks on me for this, but nobody wants to get killed. I mean, I don't want anybody to get killed. Full disclosure. By killed, I mean I need the babus to be out of the way. if there was a way for India to actually make the Babus step aside, I would be instantly optimistic about India, because everything good that happens in India happens despite the Babushai, the bureaucracy, not because of it. So the biggest impediment for India and Indian growth and Indian, you know, condition is Babushai. And when this government came in 2014, it actually said that it's gonna do to Babushai what was needed. So they talked about lateral entry, they talked about a lot of things they would be doing to counter the weight of Indian bureaucracy. But they haven't been able to do it. So you can make all the plans in the world, you can do everything, you can put money in infrastructure, you can do every possible thing. But at the end of the day, if the person responsible for executing that or maintaining that is just corrupt by design and deliberately corrupt, you know, what can you do? What can the country do? You can have a beautiful movement of Swachh Bharat. You can invest a lot of money, set up beautiful parks, invest so much on posters. You can do everything. You can give them the equipment. But if the Babu who's responsible for just making sure that it works doesn't work, and instead takes money. So recently there was a news yesterday or day before that a Babu from Northeast, who in his interview said that I just want to do something for my country and so on and so forth, he's got caught getting taking a bribe red-handed. 10 lakh rupees, 20 lakh rupees, 47 lakh rupees was found at his home, and he was like a 20 something guy, right? That's the nature of Babushai. So that makes me instantly pessimistic about the country. Otherwise, we are doing very well from a policy perspective, from the private sector perspective. We are doing really well. I mean, the startups, entrepreneurs are trying their best. Like, I'm trying my best to build virtual voter, to build Seneca, to build so many good things, right? I'm trying my level best. I'm not taking a cushy job. I'm struggling for the mission, so to speak. I'm doing my best, and so are millions of people. They are working hard and doing their absolute best in the circumstances. But the whole sarkari job mindset and the Babushahi and the powers that come with Babushahi, uh, if they persist, we can't go anywhere. That's a fact. Also, looking at Doge, I was very hopeful that looking at Argentina, Javier Milei and Nayib Bukele, and from El Salvador, and then US, they when they talked about Doge, and when Doge was being propped up as the bureaucratic like chainsaw for bureaucracy, I was very happy. I was looking at that as an inspiration for India. Like, maybe if it succeeds, India will also succeed, was the thought. But Doge failed essentially, right? They were talking about $2 trillion in cut. They could only cut $150 billion and they're out. There's nothing that they could do of substance. They couldn't fire enough people. Yes, they cut USAID, but $50 billion is chicken shit for US, for like a $30 trillion economy or whatever. So if they couldn't do it with the smartest person in the world, who's the most motivated, most risk-taking guy in the universe, if he couldn't do it in US, what hope do we have in India? So the answer to that is India is basically running Ram Bharose, and even though a lot of people like me are working so hard, trying their best to do everything, like you, like I'm sure everybody who's listening to this is a self-motivated guy who's trying his best to understand business, understand finance, understand entrepreneurship, and so on and so forth. We are working hard, but something needs to be done about the Babushai. So I'm a bit skeptical as far as the whole play is considered. But anyway, coming back to I took a lot of time there, right? Damn, sorry about that. But moving forward, defense stock should have something good. In fact, Indian defense should have something good. So what I was discussing before that was Indian defense has a real potential to actually shape the country, and also its manufacturing, because that's something very important. Anyway, Uh, Women professionals want to be top guns, not play second fiddle. Many also miss out due to superannuation or organization. But what's this? What's this news? Of course, women professionals want to be top guns. Male professionals also want to be top guns. Who wants to be second fiddle? You know. Uh, anyway, Sony moves court after TDSAT blocks Tata Play disconnection. So Sony Pictures and Tata Play have been in the crosshairs. As you might know, Thinkers Frequency viewers will know. We discussed this yesterday and also a few days ago, where we talked about how the direct to home market (DTH), the TV market is getting screwed. It's getting screwed. From 150 million in 2017, 151 million, it's come down to 100 or 110 million. You know, massive reduction, and then it's looking at going 78 million homes in 2030. So from 150 million in 2017, in 15 years you're looking at the TV industry going half. It's going down. And because TV industry is going down, a lot of problems are emerging, right? These people have had to fire 5,77,000 peoples. We discussed this yesterday, that's why I remember the numbers. So many people have had to be fired, and it's a real bloodbath that industry is going on. And when industries actually face that kind of problems, new things happen. And what's the new thing that's happening? Sony is going to court against Tata Play. So Sony and Tata Play had some disagreements over the renewal of the subscription deal. With this renewal issue, Sony actually went to court and gave them a disconnection notice that we want to disconnect because we're not a part of your plan. And Tata had put in Sony channels. They run a lot of channels as a premium issue, right? Pay per channel kind of a thing. So 27 channels. It issued a disconnection notice to Tata Play, country's largest DTH operator with 18 million subscribers, after the latter decided to remove its channels from consumer packs. Okay. So Sony sued Tata for 128 crores in dues and in so on and so forth. So the court has ordered them to pay 40 crores in the beginning and then later, right? But Tata is arguing that this kind of stuff will do irreparable harm to the DTH business, which is already facing a lot of headwinds. So it's very funny because of whatever is going on with DTH. The government has also given them a 10,000 crore notice for spectrum usages. So so here's it's an industry which is bleeding to death, right? These people are bleeding. Everything is going wrong with them. Nobody is watching linear TV anymore. And then comes the government. Oh, sorry, sir, you forgot this 10,000 crore bill. So that's happening, and it's a bloodbath with that industry. I just wish them luck, man. I also discussed about the M2P technology, which hopes to bring TV to mobile phones. That could level the playing field, but nothing has happened as of now with that. Founder of the premier M2P technology actually got in touch with me for Seneca. But nothing happened there as well. Anyway, so moving forward, we are looking at Vodafone Idea's funding delays may erode market share in top circles. This shouldn't be a surprise to anybody, right? Vodafone is a perpetual basket case, and it's been a basket case for as long as anybody can remember. And the problem is that it's gonna be an even bigger basket case if it's not being able to raise the 50,000 crore capex it wants to invest. So telecom is a capex heavy play, and Vodafone had planned like 50 to 50,000, 5,000 crore of capex to actually invest in its 4G and 5G capabilities, which is not finalized. In fact, it's not even been able to do the 25,000 crore it was supposed to do. Now Vodafone is active in some 7 important circles. Which are these circles? 20% market share, gross revenue market share in Mumbai, Kerala, Gujarat, Haryana, Kolkata, Maharashtra and UP West Circle. which contribute to 50% of its revenue. So 50% of Vodafone's revenues come from these seven circles which we talked about. And Airtel and Jio are gonna be closing in on these seven circles. And if Vodafone cannot invest money in these seven circles quickly, it'll lose this market share as well. 50% of its market share will be off. Right now, Jio has some 42.2% market share. Airtel has some 39 point some percentage. And then Voda comes at 17%. Yeah, 17%. I remember the numbers because we discussed this, right? And I hope you remember the numbers as well. That's what Thinker's Frequency is for. Mr. Manish Kondhalkar, I have a question to you. You ask your messages, ask your questions, and then delete your comments or your chat messages. Why is that? Are you fearing that intelligence agencies are looking at your messages and they'll not be able to see what you wrote? Anyway, so Maruti cuts near-term EV production targets. Well, that's not surprising, considering everything we talked about, right? So, moving on, India to lock AC settings between 20 degrees centigrade to 28 degrees centigrade in a power saving push. So, what India is saying is that you will not be able to go below 20 degrees centigrade as far as your AC settings are considered. Now, why is that? Because each degree lower you go, it leads to 6% higher energy consumption. And this is a strategic move to reduce the power consumption, essentially. So I'll just read something out. Minister has announced a 5,400 crore viability gap fund to support 30 gigahertz battery storage. That's a different thing. But explaining the rationale, Union Power Secretary Mr. Pankaj Agrawal said there are 100 million ACs in the country and 15 million new ACs are added every day. 100 million is 10 crore. 10 crore ACs and 15 million is 1.5 crore ACs added every year. 1 degree reduction in AC temperature causes energy consumption by 6% rise. I told you that. Interestingly, Centre is already supporting 13.2 gigawatt watt of battery energy storage system in a fresh 5,400 crore scheme, highlighting the achievements, this and that. He said there was no shortage at peak power at 241 gigahertz. Yeah, so that's what I was trying to tell you. So that what happens is energy consumption goes up and down. It's a cyclical thing. And when it's going up and down, what really needs to be tight is the management of it, management of supply. And since 11 years, we've been very proper as far as data is considered, as far as the management of the supply is considered, because we've not had the situations that we used to have before, like power cuts and all, because our peak power consumption met a shortfall and so on and so forth. This reminds me, a move like this where you're locking the AC settings reminds me of the LED push, which is one of the greatest strategic policy moves that India has ever taken. Mr. Manish Kondhalkar would like to know, why am I still optimistic about India? Is that these policy moves are great. So India used to have those incandescent bulbs, right? The beautiful bulbs. Then came the CFLs because CFLs were more energy efficient than incandescent bulbs. Then after CFLs came LED, right? But how the way LEDs were pushed, like government subsidized LEDs like crazy, and they gave props to LEDs. They set up replacement guarantees and warranties. They basically built in 2014 the whole LED industry. Okay, and they built it so well that all homes started using LEDs instead of CFLs, instead of incandescent bulbs, which brought down the power consumption by a lot, which is great news, man, which is absolutely wonderful, right? Uncertainty over strategy of JPVL lenders clouds JP Associates debt resolution plan. So we were talking about Vijay Mallya and how he fled the country. But then I told you about, if you remember, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know, that JP Associates, the Gores, they've been very classy and refined about the whole thing. So they took a lot of debt, second only to Vodafone, right? Some 40,000 crores in debt. JP had a debt of some 35,000, 30 to 40,000 crores, if I'm not wrong. Huge debt, right? And things went south as they often do. But they were like, we are here, we are cooperating, we are sad that things didn't go as planned, but here are all the assets, and this is we are here to ensure maximum recovery, right? And very classy, very refined. So again, Jayaprakash Associates Limited is the JAL, the flagship company which went under. Now JPVL is the power company, Jayaprakash Power Ventures Limited and stuff. So the interesting case, what has happened is that banks have had taken CCPS. CCPS is convertible shares, right? Debt which can be converted, 3.8 thousand to JPVL. Okay. Now Jayaprakash Associates, JAL, the parent company, already had like 24% share, and promoters' share was already pledged, right? So if lenders convert this debt into shares, public shareholding will come down, right? And if that comes down, the value of JAL could come down. And if that happens, it's going to be a big problem with the whole recovery is considered, right? So JPVL, a listed associate of JAL with a market cap of 12,000 crore, is the most valuable asset in JAL's portfolio. Okay, that also includes real estate, cement, and so on and so forth. JAL did to Noida what DLF did to Gurgaon. Unfortunately, things didn't pan out so well for them. So, as a part of debt restructuring, JPVL has issued CCPS to lenders, as I told you, convertible shares or something. CCPS is compulsory convertible preference shares, right? JAL only has 24% ownership in JPVL, and 80% of promoter shares were pledged as collaterals for loan. So that is gone, right? That is obviously gone, including some of the largest corporates. So debt restructuring agreement left the timeline for conversions of shares open-ended. Now the problem is, the potential bidders are now seeking clarity on lenders on their conversion plans, arguing that this information is crucial to calculate the value of holding company. So now companies are trying to bid for JPVL, right? Somebody's going to buy out. That's how loans are paid back. So they're asking, what do you plan to do with converting your debt? Because if you convert your debt into shares, it's going to affect the value of the company. And if it does affect the value of the company, what are we paying for? So government backed is that 25 entities including Adani, Vedanta are interested. As the public shareholding of Jayaprakash Power Ventures is very high, the conversion of CCPS could further dilute the holding company's stake in JPVL. So JAL's stake will come down, due to which a lot of problems could happen for the recovery rates. This is not complicated at all, and I hope it was very clear to you all. No problems with understanding. However, these things suddenly seem a little complicated to people who don't watch Thinkers Frequency regularly, right? Speaking of not watching regularly and not seeing on something not regular, something hugely irregular has happened, is that India's fertility rate is down. It's now 1.9%. That means India's population will not grow. So India will go the west way. So for a population to maintain its size or at least grow, the fertility rate has to be 2.1%. That means a female has to bear 2 children for the thing to go. Of course, right? 2 parents come together. If they make 1 kid, it's decreasing, right? So somebody has to bear 2 kids on an average to be able to grow the population or sustain the population. But for the first time, India's fertility rate has fallen down to 1.9, which means India's population will decline, which means India's population will get older. So right now, the whole young population spiel, it might not hold true, because we'll not stay young if new babies don't come, right? So that's gonna lead to serious social ramifications, uh, and I'll not go there. Socio-political ramifications as well, which I don't want to touch. Anyway, so OpenAI is hedging Microsoft bet with Google Cloud deal. So OpenAI has raised like $13 billion from Microsoft, and it's hugely dependent on Microsoft, but it doesn't want to stay that way. So it's hedging its risks by actually going to Google Cloud for uh, excessive cloud usage needs, and that's something to note. By the way, something funny that has happened is that Miss Greta Thunberg, the activist, she has staged, she has performed, she has probably held the world, secured a world record for performing the least effective protest. So she has done what appears to be, in the history of protesting, the least successful protest. So she basically went to Gaza. Her plan was to go to Gaza and protest. So earlier she was a climate activist, but now she has entered, the overarching political, social activism. So now she was wanting to go to Gaza and protest, but IDF, that is Israeli Defense Force, they just picked her up and she entered Israel, and they just deported her. So she came all the way from the plane to Israel. IDF picked her up, sent her in a place to New Jersey. Which has to be easily the least successful protest in the history of protesting. So yet another milestone or feather in the cap for Miss Greta Thunberg. Crypto's hottest new trend: publicly traded companies buying Bitcoin in bunches. We discussed this. A company called JetKing, which had a market cap of 50 crores, they bought like 6 crore worth Bitcoin, and that was a rare instance in the Indian public bourses, right? It was happened for the first time when a publicly listed company actually bought Bitcoin and raised money for it. So raised money to buy Bitcoins. So that apparently is a hot trend. A lot of companies are doing that, and especially it's not happening much in India, but it's happening a lot. So that is that. US China trade talks are happening. Uh, First, China sends 2 aircraft carriers into the Pacific. Well, that's no news. No news. And moving on. Equity fund flows slow in May on profit booking, investor restraint. Well, not a news. So this is why I don't talk about stocks a lot, even though I do a little, but not a lot, because a lot of what comes for news is basically noise, right? So they say equity fund flows slow in May on profit booking, investor restraint. Elevated valuations post market rebound prompt many to take a cautious stance. Flows drop 22% from April. That's no news, right? It's supposed to be cyclical, right? Somebody books profits and then somebody makes an investment, calibrates the resource. It's basically, maybe it's very important for daily traders, but daily traders are ahead of this, so they know what's happening. So it's basically news for nobody. Nobody really gains, right? HDFC, ICICI Bank, and many others lower FD rates. We discussed this at length at Thinkers Frequency, and many times, right? Many times, because we saw how HDFC and ICICI Bank and everybody were supposed to cut rates because of the repo rate cut. 0.5% has been cut down. Interest rates are gonna go down. Savings rates are gonna go down, and so on and so forth. So Shapoorji Pallonji Group's convertible debentures, debt instruments, are being sold down if you have 10 crores. So they're going to the HNIs and selling their NCDs. Shapoorji Pallonji Group guys, because the yield rate is high. It's 18.75%, and yeah. So investor yield was, for institutional investors, the yield was 19.75%. For HNI yeah, and clients, it could be 18 to 18.5% of yield. So they are trying to go to the HNIs for debt, but patient capital 10 crore debt, so that you don't see people who are flipping out. But it's weird that a group of this size is banned. Blue Smart did the same, by the way, and it went under. Morgan Stanley includes Grasim as a topic, raises target to 3,500. Grasim has actually launched a paint venture, right? Grasim is the Aditya Birla flagship company. So Aditya Birla flagship company has launched a paint company, which has screwed the paint stocks, Asian Paints, Berger Paints, and so on and so forth. They've been struggling. So Morgan Stanley is going bullish on it. No wonder, no wonder. In a place like that, Birla already had a lot of construction equipment thing going on, and now with the paints thing, it's bound to, and it's a new company, growth potential should be higher. So no surprise there. No surprise there. Anyway, so moving on, non-life insurers report May far slower under the new norms, which is very interesting, right? Companies are registering 6% year-on-year gross premium compared with 14.9% year ago. Sorry about that noise. So non-life insurers are seeing low growth under new norms, but not a lot of people know why they are showing less growth. So it's not that they're not growing anymore, it's that the way they have been regulated, the way they are supposed to report their premiums has changed. So reporting premiums for non-life insurers has changed to a 1 by n routine. So 1 by n routine, what it says is that the premium which you're collecting cannot be shown at that particular period, but it has to be amortized for the entire life cycle. So I'll just tell you, slowdown is largely attributed to the new 1 by n rule for reporting premiums for policies that are longer than 1 year. So policies longer than 1 year, you cannot just show that premium for that particular year. You got to amortize it. You got to distribute it across the years. Earlier, what these companies used to do is, no matter the policy term, it could just, you could keep you could report all that premium in that particular year. So it beefed up the earnings. If you remember, something similar happened with Byju's. So when you take money from students or parents and you have a class of like four years, you cannot collect all that revenue and show it as 1 year. That's not standard accounting practice, right? You've got to amortize that revenue across those 4 years, which is what those auditors pointed out, which is what blew up the whole lid on the Byju's. That if your service is longer than a year, how can you show the revenue collected in that year as the revenue for that year? That's just not right. Anyway, moving forward, small banks want to make it big. No surprise there. So a lot of small banks are going big. They are essentially acquiring license for a general license. A lot of small banks, the capital requirements, a lot of regulation requirements are different for small banks and the major mainstream national level banks, right? So Jan Small Bank became the third small bank in India to have applied for universal banking license. Bigger peers waiting in the line include AU SFB and Ujjivan SFB, small financing banks. Universal banking license will give SFBs greater operational flexibility and help them tap diverse markets. Of course, but with that comes a lot of regulation. Great that small banks are finding this opportunity. More the merrier as far as banking is concerned, right? So moving forward, World Bank predicts India doom amid global gloom. Well, how much? 3 out of 10 for the heading, right? Just kidding. But yeah, the world is growing only at 2.9%, while India is supposed to be growing at 6.3%. Says the country is going to remain one of the fastest growing economies in FY26 despite a lower growth rate of 6.3%. Yeah, so again, Mr. Manish Kondalkar, I am optimistic about the country, but with caveats. Mr. Amrut Raj says, accrual concept and revenue recognition. You're correct. So, West Bengal predicts India doom amidst. Okay. S&P sees top companies capex rise to $850 billion over 5 years. $850 billion is a lot of money. So S&P with Crisil and all these researchers, they saw the top 500 companies of this country, top 100 companies of this country, publicly listed and otherwise, and they say the plans of their capex over the next 5 years. They counted and published this report where they say that private companies are going to invest $850 billion in capex over 5 years. Now, the government of India has been very sad and has been nagging and complaining that Indian corporates haven't really been investing in capex. Almost all the capex is coming from the public spending. I mean, private capex has declined. It has just kept pace. These corporates are just looking at their money and putting it safe. They're not starting more units. They're not doing that, which is very bad for the country, right? If the private sector doesn't invest in capex, a lot of things don't happen. So S&P has seen all these reports, but you know what the problem is? This is especially for Thinkers Frequency viewers. We know that a lot of such announcements of capex, they're gas, right? They're just fugazi, woozy, it's a wazi, it's fairy dust, as Matthew McConaughey said in Wolf of Wall Street, right? They don't mean it. They just announce those capex subject to market conditions and subject to debt accruals and subject to whatever. So a lot of it might not materialize, but $850 billion over 5 years is huge. It's pretty huge. So Cabinet Secretary to hold meeting next week on MTNL revival. So we talked about this. BSNL, MTNL, Vodafone Idea. These are the three public companies. Why I'm calling Vodafone Idea public companies? Because 49% of it belongs to us taxpayers, right? That cannot be good news. That is not a good news for us. But it is what it is. And another bad news for Indian taxpayers is something called MTNL. Again, ruined because of the bureaucracy, Babushahi, whatever. Such shitty service. It's unbelievable how these companies existed. I mean, these companies should not be allowed to exist. Consumer-facing companies where consumers depend on your service, and government cannot just do it, because look at MTNL. We used to have MTNL, it never worked. And those guys never wanted to even repair. So we used to just complain to them. The linemen never came. It was just horrible. Anyway, due to those problems, MTNL has a total financial debt of 33,000 crores. Right? 33,000 crores. 24,000 crores is direct sovereign guarantee bonds, and 1,500 owed to Department of Telecommunication and interest payments, bond interest. So the government is saying we cannot put in money into MTNL, but we'll try to revive it. How to say something without saying anything? How to just speak without saying anything? This is a good example, right? We're gonna revive MTNL. Yes, it is a lot of debt. It has a lot of debt, and 8,300 crores bank default, but we're gonna revive it. We can't put money on it. So maybe a business model shift. Who knows? Tata Electronics sending hundreds of staff to Taiwan for semiconductor training. The Tata Electronics, as I've mentioned before, is going heavy on the whole fab business, and 50 to 75 people were trained now, were getting sent, but now it's 200 people. What they expect to do is like the upcoming Dholera fab. So they're starting a fab in Dholera. Is going to be huge, right? 20,000 jobs and seriously strategic value. So, and India doesn't have that talent right now. So Tata is actually investing in that talent, making them go to Taiwan to learn, because that's the hub, right? Tata Electronics' upcoming 91,000 crore fab in Dholera is expected to generate that revenue, while the 27,000 crore OSAT facility in Assam would create about 27,000 jobs. So Tata has OSAT in Assam. We talked about it. And then Dholera, which is huge. So that's that. But we've already discussed about this. Turns out Apple stock is down. 2%, it went down yesterday. We discussed Thinkers Frequencies. Viewers would know that we talked about Apple stock in a strain because of nothing on AI, right? In fact, they introduced something like liquid glass or something. So people are saying that, hey, Microsoft introduced it in Vista. They called it Aqua. What the hell is this? Stock went down. So no surprise there. Apple intelligence, as my New York NYU guy told me, isn't really intelligence. Rodin copy sells for 1 million in France. So somebody thought that it's a copy. Somebody had bought a sculpture or something, and then it turned out that it was an original, and it has sold for $1 million in France. So this is interesting. I read a book. I don't know if you can see, but the biography of Leonardo da Vinci by Walter Isaacson, and in that I realized what a scam this art market is. You know? So every year or so, these people find out something related to a very known artist. Like they find out, oh, this painting is done by Leonardo da Vinci. And people are like, no, this painting is not done by Leonardo da Vinci. It's just a painting lying down, right? $100 at a cafe or something. And then these people know this is that. And then they go, this whole art fraternity, they do a lot of research, they date that particular piece. Now they can't say like Leonardo da Vinci is not going to come back from heaven and tell them that no, I did not paint this painting. But they say no, he was at that time in this period, he couldn't have done this. Oh, this could be Leonardo da Vinci's student's painting. And suddenly that $100 painting becomes like $1 million. This happens. I'm not kidding. I'm not making this up. This happens way too many times. You know, so in this particular case, owners thought the sculpture perched for years on the corner of a piano was a Rodin copy, but after being declared as the real thing, small marble figure has now sold for $1 million at an auction. Described as an extremely rare find by auction organizer Ermek. So all these auction organizers, art schools, and so on, they run this. You know, they collectively sit together and they decide, they argue, and basis their argument, a piece gets valued suddenly from $100 to $1 million. After, this figure was in fact an 1892 work by Despair, called Despair by Auguste Rodin, that had gone missing after being sold in an auction for 1906. At 1906, the work was put on sale. Opening price was this and that. Family had long believed the 11-inch figure of a sitting woman holding one foot was copy of the legendary sculptor's work. After the owners approached Rolac about another matter, they were talking to that guy about something else. But then that guy said he and his team spent months investigating origin of the sculpture, and so on and so forth. We have rediscovered it, says Rolac. So with that, we come to the end of Thinker's Frequency. I hope you loved the episode. This was a good roundup. 9 o'clock, 9:01. Yesterday we got late. We finished at 9:08. Sorry about that. Today we are on time. So insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis, right before we start our day, right before we punch in, is over. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.